Welcome back, everyone, to Burlington and Beyond. And to everyone, a Happy New Year. We had a special year last year, and we have an even better year this year. Tonight, we want to begin with a very special show as well. First, let me introduce the guests on the panel. To my left is Pat Marino from Burlington. Next to me is Alan Waters from Mashpee. And we'll get back to Alan very shortly, a guest. And Adam Sinesi, also part of Burlington Beyond. Again, we're glad you could join us, and we have a special announcement tonight. We asked Alan to join us because he is going to, I believe, announce he's going to run for U.S. Senate from Massachusetts.
I am
Congratulations.
I am running for U.S. Senate for the state of Massachusetts, and I'm ready to go the distance. And I think I'm going to be the type of person that voters want to pay attention to.
So the next election that's coming up for Senate will be in 2018, so you're getting a nice head start.
Sure, it's a big race. Also, as you may know, the incumbent has $4 million. You got to start early to even begin to catch up.
The incumbent being Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren, that's right. Elizabeth Warren is coming up for re-election, and we want to stop that because I don't believe that she should represent the state of Massachusetts anymore as a U.S. Senator. And we'll be talking about the reasons why.
A lot of smiles on the set here.
And you know, Alan, she just announced last Friday, as you're well aware.
That's right.
And then today I got an email from the state Republican Party saying, we need to do something about this. Elizabeth Warren has just announced. We Republicans need to have an answer, a response.
Well, I am the answer. Right now, I'm the only person running, and I want the people of the Commonwealth to know that, and the good people of Burlington, that there's some good reasons why, because she's not in touch with the rest of the base. And I'm just a regular middle-class American, you know, and a lot of people, especially after Bernie Sanders had run, and also, of course, our new president-elect, that it really has awoken the fact that a lot of regular working people want more from their government, and they need to start sending people, not just the elites, but people just like them, and I am that person.
I totally agree with you. That was the strongest part of the message that came out of the presidential election. People want more representation. They want real representation. I have to, Alan, I'm thrilled that you came here tonight. I know it was a little bit of a ride. We're honored, and I can tell you quite honestly that I'm very impressed with the way you respond and your ideas so far that we haven't talked for that long, but I'm very impressed with you as an individual, and I think you've got a lot of good fire in you. You seem to really want this, and I think that's probably the first step to want to win.
The whole idea is the country has a lot of problems, and we send a lot of people that have qualifications, but they're not getting the job done.
Right.
You know, and so how can we have a country where the middle class is no longer the majority?
Yeah.
How can we continue to, with 50 years of progressive failure on poverty and of course progress, because people aren't moving up and out of their sometimes dismal situation. We're going to need a different type of person that's not worried about their self and their career growth. We want someone that's perhaps like our neighbor, you know, shoveling out their own driveway, shopping at their local grocery store, and comfortable with it. My vision is when I finish my term in Washington, D.C. as a U.S. Senator, I'd just like to go back to my little quarter acre in Cape Cod, my little Cape Cod home, and if the neighbors are still waving, then I know I did a good job.
And we want to visit.
Okay, but I'll be coming up, you know that.
Alan, if I could ask you, what motivated you to run for Senate, and what do you believe the main issues are in this upcoming race?
Well, again, one of the main reasons why, because the middle class And the lower class is stagnant. America is not growing. Our country, we have people that are worried whether they're going to be able to retire with a weak Social Security. We have our children that are graduating from college not getting the type of jobs that they need to get. In order to do that, we need more jobs. But we need the type of policies, we need the type of government that's promoting job growth. Because unfortunately, too many taxes, over-regulation, that is stifling America's growth. And we can even see that in the Commonwealth. You know, Boston is one of the best places in the universe, except Boston, when you look at the whole state of Massachusetts, is kind of a real small place where all of the commerce is going on, but then the rest of the state needs also a boost. And you need somebody also on the federal government level to work with the state to try to spread the wealth, so to speak, in other places in this great Commonwealth that we have.
Go ahead, Larry, I'm sorry.
So we're doing okay here in this area, but there are the other regions of the state that probably could use some more assistance.
Sure.
The Fall River, New Bedford areas, western part of the state, Springfield, even some of the Worcester area too.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a native of Providence, Rhode Island, and I consider myself a South Coast guy. You know, and so when you talk about the Fall Rivers and the New Bedfords, you know, there's a lot of places there that, in a way, because of the poor economies in those little areas, that they're just not doing very well. There's still a lot of poverty, a lot of people in need. But how do we spread some of the good fortune from Boston Metro to those other places?
Right.
You know, I have some ideas.
Right. Do you feel that what has happened in the presidential election, you know, some of your ideas and some of the things that you want, do they look like they're more than likely to be fulfilled, assuming that you're elected, because of the national feelings that are going on? Do you know what I mean? Do your issues dovetail in some instances with what Mr. Trump is looking for?
I believe that all of the agendas that I've heard so far from the Trump administration, I can certainly relate to them, and I can't think of anything yet that was going to be a negative to America. Because think about what Americans want. What do we all want right here? What we want, first of all, as Americans, is we want our government to protect us. If we are not protected, how can we have commerce? How can we have a society? You know, if we're worried about threats from outside as well as internal threats such as we don't have a grasp on who our foreign enemies here that just walk across borders or walk across their visas, or people that we continue to bring into this country through other means. And it's become more riskier being an American under these conditions.
Absolutely.
And so we've had 8 years of people that have not worried about us as individual Americans versus some other lofty, more liberal agendas. And so I believe that the Trump administration is going to be working on those things, from our safety to issues such as just what the American dream means to people. You know, we've gotten away from what the Constitution really means and the Bill of Rights. You know, I mean, people don't talk necessarily about religion, but how about ethics and morality? Things that are almost kind of like a natural law type of things. These are the things that are missing. And we need to get those back. And I think we can get those things back under Donald Trump administration, because no matter what you might think about Mr. Trump, he's building he's going to build a type of America that's good for all of us, from Democrat to Republican.
That's great. I totally agree with you. I think he's on the right track. I'm sure that we have yet to see a lot of the things that he wants, but your ideas are pretty much in line with his, and I think that's terrific.
What's interesting about the ideas that Alan just hit on, though, is that, you know, ideas of economic prosperity, ideas of national security. These aren't issues that just appeal to this small demographic group.
Everyone.
Oh, this is for women, that's for men, this is for, you know,
Immigrants.
immigrants. this is for the Hispanic population. These are things that appeal to everybody that just seem like common sense issues. For example, Donald Trump wants to get smarter about combating terrorism. We just had a gentleman, I wouldn't call him a gentleman, I guess, but
Yeah, the man.
there was a man that back in, when was it, September or October, he opened fire in a gay nightclub.
Oh, yeah.
Now, people try and, slice and dice and turn the straight people against the gay people and vice versa, et cetera, et cetera. But there are groups of people that want to do our country harm, and that cuts across all demographics.
They not only want to do our country harm, but they just want to kill us.
Yeah.
Period. You know, our Judeo-Christian ethics, and even Muslims believe in Jesus Christ.
Yes.
We all pray to the same God. But when the prophet Moses came down, what did he say? You shouldn't kill. How can you turn around and say for God that you want to kill your fellow man? There's a problem in a subset of the Muslim religion that this is not people across a border or across a field that we're shooting at. These are people that are motivated by things that we're just not used to here. But we have to
Absolutely.
protect ourselves, not to be prejudiced, not to be against anyone specifically, but certainly if you're here to do us harm, then we have to protect ourselves in any means necessary. But it also just starts from the mere fact that how can you have a country that's stable when untold numbers of people continue to break the law by crossing the border?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I am against amnesty, and I'll tell you why. By the way, I'm an African American man. I have no problem with any other ethnic minority. I've always grown up in a very diverse environment. But let me tell you, when people cross the border or walk away from their visas, they're not going to the rich neighborhoods. They're creating even more problems that we have with Americans in the poor neighborhoods that we have. And in Massachusetts, there's a lot of places from Brockton to Boston Roxbury to Springfield, even in the Hyannis and down in Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Why should our American poor people, from white to Latino to black, have to compete for jobs and resources by people that don't belong here? we need to A, slow that down, but B, listen, if you ever had a speeding ticket or a parking ticket and forgot to pay it, the law never lets you forget that you broke the law. You got to pay that ticket. How can you just kind of cross the border, right? How can you do that and not realize that, hey, the first thing you did to visit America was break the law? And there's this, anytime that you talk to some of the more progressives that are really on the far left, and they're so upset that Hillary Clinton lost that they can, sometimes when you talk to them and you tell them that you're Republican, they almost turn violent. And so that's very, I have to watch myself because I'm a big guy, and I go to the gym, I lift and whatever, but I don't want to be attacked by by someone who's believes that something is going wrong because now that the Republicans are ruling the roost. But back to the point that I wanted to make is just that you need order. We shouldn't have to be in a chaotic situation because you know what? Not everybody that's crossing the border is a person that always just needs our most compassion. A lot of people are just doing it because that's what they're doing. And people crossing the border, it's almost like a party.
Yeah.
And they're joining the across the border train. We need to slow that down.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. How do you feel about the concept of globalization? Are you America first, or are you willing to, for example, the treaties that Mr. Obama has gotten involved in? I have reservations about them. I have reservations about losing our sovereignty in any fashion whatsoever. And yet there are some strong currents out there about people who are saying the best thing in the world. And it honestly seems to me that the world, because it's becoming smaller, is not intent, but it's almost inevitable that we are going to globalize to some extent. But I'm deathly afraid of giving up any of our sovereignty, whether it's the United Nations, NATO, or any of the other countries. I want America first. And anyway.
Well, listen, not only do I believe in America first, but when we go back to just NAFTA and opening up more commerce between ourselves and Canada and Mexico.
Right.
Even Bill Clinton has slipped while he was on the campaign trail, speaking for his on his wife's behalf, and he has said that maybe that wasn't the best deal at all. Okay, or the best deal at the time. But you know, in hindsight, how many Americans have lost their jobs when they shouldn't have, as more American-based companies are deciding to send over more of their factories over to Mexico, for instance. Okay, okay. How about a breath of fresh air? Donald Trump's not even president yet. And he has major corporations just like Fiat this week saying, whoa, I think we're going to build in Detroit. What a great thing.
Yeah.
I mean, why didn't Obama do that? Why didn't it? Because there's people that believe there's this one world order. So I don't know what that's called, but put it this way. We're a free enterprise, free person type of country, and it is America first, where why should you even care whether the profits of one particular company, whether they're foreign based or even American based, if they're not making as much, but more Americans are working, you know?
Right.
I'm a free enterprise kind of guy, you know? But that's what's important. And so the same with TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yep.
I think we should relook at that. And if we don't totally abandon it, we should rewrite it in a way that strengthens the opportunities for American workers to find work in America.
Yeah, you dovetail a little bit with Mr. Trump on some of his ideas, and I think that's I agree. I voted for him, and I'm happy to say that I voted for him, and I'm happy that you are looking at things in not the same light, but things the way I think they should be, and that's terrific.
Well, I sent a little message to the Trump administration. I don't have any phone calls or who to call yet. I'm just still a guy from Mashpee on Cape Cod, but we'll get those numbers sooner or later. And I did say to Trump, I said, I promise not to, because he's a New Yorker, I promise not to sue President-elect Trump, because I was talking like Trump before Trump was talking like Trump. And so I believe he stole my ideas, but don't record that. Yeah, it's teasing.
Well, I appreciate the comparisons with Trump, but I think you also have a lot in common with Charlie Baker.
Yes, okay.
I think you have a lot of the same views, opinions. And again, I like Charlie Baker because he wants government to work.
Yes, he
We
does.
mentioned earlier that we just want government to make us safe. Well, I'd say second order to that, maybe first would be, hey, let's get the government working for us.
We want the government to. And how do we do that? I am an advocate for tax simplification. Tax simplification before tax reduction. And what does that mean? It just means that until we get the government, the Trump administration moves along, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on just complying with the tax code.
Right.
When, quite simply, if it was either a flat tax, like let's say for now, as simple as it could be, one rate for everybody, or if it was a consumption tax, where you just pay tax on the
What you
sale,
buy,
what you buy. I think just that alone, that you can complete your tax on just an index card or one sheet of paper that you've complied. Can you imagine what that might help to get businesses going? The regulations from federal to local have just continued to increase, especially with the progressives in charge. We need to reduce regulations, never putting people at risk. We don't want people hurt or poisoned. We certainly want the business to be fair.
Right.
What does fair mean? It just means, look, one thing we have to do, and I could say I agree with Bernie Sanders on this, is that we have to make sure that we end or at least reduce crony capitalism.
Absolutely.
Because, we can talk about people that are in need, and sometimes welfare becomes a dirty word. Well, why isn't welfare the same with a major corporation? Because in fact, that's what, they can't exist unless they're doing government contracts. Well, that's just the same thing. They're kind of living off the taxpayer in a different sort of way.
Yep.
And so, in order for, but what does that have to do? I said big businesses. We want small businesses that exist. We want the emerging entrepreneurs, people that don't even know they want to start a business yet. I want them to know especially through the federal law, that it's easy to start a business. It's easy that you have a better chance of success because government is not in your way. And that is different from what we've known. We still, I can't imagine why when people, especially the progressives, say, well, I don't want to vote for Trump. Why you don't want to vote for Trump? Because you don't like lower taxes. You don't want to vote for Trump because you don't believe that less regulation is going to get a business going. You don't want more safety so that your children can walk the streets and feel comfortable. I have small children.
Sure.
I don't want to think that every mall that I walk in, I've got to be looking over my shoulder.
Right.
And quite frankly, you do.
Yeah.
You really look for the exits now.
Yeah.
And that's no way to live in America.
No.
And I don't know if we can ever get it back, but we have to do the things that will help us get there.
I completely agree with the regulations in particular. We are overburdened with regulations. There are just so many. It's I'm happy when I heard. I guess it was Mr. Trump or one of his people said that they were going to get rid of a lot of regulations within the first 2 or 3 days that he's in office. There are just so many. They have written so many to. It contains our world. It contains our life, and it's very. And there's no need for it.
There's no need for it.
Because it ruins independence. You don't learn how to depend upon yourself and how to become an individual and how to become responsible. That's a big word today.
Well,
Larry, I'm sorry. You're going.
Well, and a lot of the corporations are the ones that are writing the regulations
Sure.
to empower themselves, keep their practices all set.
Yeah,
but
like the
make it
healthcare
difficult.
industry that wrote up the healthcare bill under the Obama administration. That was written by the healthcare lobbyists.
Be it healthcare, be it EPA. I mean, it's all safety. I mean, it's all written by industries to help prevent another company from getting started. So I'd like to see small business give input on these new regulations,
Well,
if that'd be possible.
that is so important because we often talk about regulations as being something that we need to get rid of, but really regulations are used by businesses that are already in business to keep other businesses. And one of the greatest examples in the state of Massachusetts is the taxi cab industry with their medallions, and Uber and Lyft and all the other rideshare industries.
Yeah.
People like Uber. People like Lyft. They like to be able to know who's coming, when they're coming, where they're going to go, and have a general idea of what the price is going to be.
Yeah.
What a great model. Yeah. But of course, the old world is fighting that because sure, a lot of people invested, but you know what? Things change. But they fight change, and they use regulations to fight change as well.
Exactly.
Yep.
Alan, tell us a little bit about your upbringing in Rhode Island, how you ended up in Massachusetts, your education, just.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think upbringing sometimes is one of the reasons why I'm sitting here and I want to run for U.S. Senate. My father was a police officer, Providence Police. He was in traffic. He was a motorcycle officer. I have a picture. You may see it on, I think it's on my website, definitely on my Facebook. Okay. My Facebook is Alan Waters for U.S. Senate. And there's a picture of my father on his motorcycle in my driveway on the west end of Providence. My mother still lives in the same house. We moved there in 1960. And speaking of that, I know my mother, who is the type of woman who lives in a big giant duplex all by herself because she doesn't want to rent the other side. She's a believer in the Second Amendment, so I make sure I let her know who's at the door. and that works just fine.
God bless her.
You know what I'm saying? So I grew up, and my mother was a bookkeeper for a number of companies, last one of the better known independent schools. So in reality, my mother was the brain of the operations. My father, after he retired, he was a cabinet maker.
Okay.
And so therefore, he had something to do after, and he just retired in his 20 years and went on to do that. But what the most important thing is, very blue collar, very righteous, living the right way, and passing that on to the children. You know, I have a sister. So, and I do the same with my family. I raised a family in East Providence. My oldest son graduated from Holy Cross, but I also got remarried. It happens in this modern lifestyle, and I have 3 children on Cape Cod, still all preteens. So my youngest son is 9,
Wow.
and my
Good
oldest
for
son
you.
is 39. And I also have a grandson in college. He's a sophomore.
Wow.
It's clear he has a limitless well of energy. You can tell that just from sitting in the studio with him.
Well, here's the thing, though. As a representative of the people, with young children, I can represent the millennials as much as I'll be 61 in a couple of weeks, as I can represent the baby boomers who are already retired or going to retire, and all of the angst that goes on with, will you retire well? Will your Social Security still be there?
Right.
Will the benefits that you have invested in along the way, will the government, whether it's Republican or Democrat, honor those? Even if someday we have to change it, will we at least take care of the people
Sure.
who bought into it and expect certain
Yeah.
things along the way? So that breadth of family also allows me to, again, be a wider representation. And you know what? I'm going to segue into something that's very important to me and one of my issues. I'm going to talk about
Please.
higher education for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Because we can have all of the opportunities to grow, but we need a sound education, okay? So what I'm going to do is go from speak about higher education, and then I'll speak K through 12 real quickly.
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
My oldest son, when he went to Holy Cross, 1995, sticker price was $25,000. Today it's $60,000.
Yeah.
And when my 9-year-old son goes, assuming that colleges and universities in general continue to raise their price by 5% a year, it's going to be $90,000 a year.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Of course
We
it is.
are
Yeah.
in an extreme bubble with higher education. It should have never got that way. That's a lack of leadership from both sides of the aisle, that you're going to allow one of the most precious things that we have to get so out of reach. But I'll tell you one of the major reasons why it's out of reach, and that's college loans. When I was in 1995, I remember stroking my pen on a $20,000 loan, my first Parent Plus loan. You know, I've always just been a guy of regular means. I don't think I could have
terms
walked
of
into
that,
the bank at that time
Right.
Yeah.
just on my name,
Yeah.
and they would have gave me $20,000 for anything. But because it was a government-backed loan, they did. That's inflationary.
Sure.
That's what's caused a lot of inflation. I believe
And colleges took advantage of it too. Great, they have more money available to them. Let's increase costs more.
well, there's no incentive, because any time that the government gets involved in business, it creates distortions.
Exactly
It's the
right.
same as the housing market 8 years ago.
We
Are our
almost-
memories that short?
Well,
You know?
we almost lost the world,
Right.
because starting with the Clinton administration, they decided America wants more people to have homes, and say the lowered the lending standard. Okay, and so therefore, of course, the people, the bankers, Wall Street, what have you, they packaged some bad mortgages in the good, and they froze the market.
Yep.
And the rest is history. It almost went down, but we were able to save that.
Yep.
Well, here we are now. I hear stories. I worked for, again, a company that did counseling to colleges and universities. I remember sitting down with a young lady who was teaching at a private school, and the young lady was in a physical therapy degree, had her master's. $250,000 of debt for a $40,000 job. Are you kidding? That's going on all across America. That has to stop. But how do you do that? To be quick for our meeting here is that we need to phase the government out of government-backed lending and put it back into the private sector.
Exactly right.
Because then banks will talk about your qualifications to be able to not only pay it back, because there's a lot of defaults going on, but also they'll do things like decide, gee, well, is your major the type of major that's going to be able to pay back this loan? Does it justify that? But most importantly, more importantly than that, if the institutions, the sellers, have to readjust their prices to the buyers who no longer have unlimited
Funds,
borrowing possibility, then it should at least slow that process down, you know, and over time, just our growth of salaries will maybe make it better. But we need to do that. K through 12, I'm going to talk about Elizabeth Warren for a moment.
Sure.
There's
a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about Elizabeth Warren, but let me tell you one thing. As an African American, knowing that a lot of minorities in especially Boston and other places, they're backed up by the thousands where they've applied for charter schools, and both the teachers unions and Elizabeth Warren basically turned their back on some and the neediest, and that's people of all cultures and races in the inner cities, that the schools, the public schools, which do very well in a lot of places. I'm a public school advocate, but when it's not working, people need choices.
Right.
Families need choices, because how can we complain about people not working, being able to not really get, if they don't have an education, they don't have the training that starts in that K through 12 possibility. So if Elizabeth Warren is an advocate of the common man, she blew it there.
I agree.
You know,
How do you feel about school vouchers?
the answer is, if that's what works, that's fine. You know, I don't even know if we use that process too much in Massachusetts, but in other
I don't
places
believe
in
in
the country.
Massachusetts.
At a national level, I don't think we do.
Yeah,
But,
that's worked.
but let me ask you about one other
Yes, sir.
aspect of education that I think is almost being overlooked.
Okay.
In favor at looking at the higher education, the colleges, the sexier education,
Sure.
I think there's a great need for vocational training. Now, for example, one of the industries, let's just take machining industry. The average machinist is 57 years old.
And he's not being replaced because
Right.
they don't. Okay.
Right.
That's right.
Because they're being pushed on to college.
Sure.
They're being, that's an area that's being forgotten.
Yeah.
And certainly, if we're going to be bringing back all these companies, we're going to need some workers. We're going to need some trained workers.
Yeah. Also, we're going to need some people who are ready to work. The percentages of men. I speak of men as in I'm a man, and I do a lot of things to work to feed my family, and always have. And there's a lot of men that are kind of dropped out of work. And we need to also incentivize, one way or another, those people. But back to the training, the answer is yes, we do. And maybe in many cases, there's so many things that you really can't import overseas, but if we have more jobs, we need to invest in training. And as U.S. Senator, I'm going to make sure that Massachusetts gets its fair share of whatever's going on, so that we can make sure that we take care of the regular, let's call them the blue-collar worker. But in this case, many of those jobs pay more money than anyone who's graduated from college.
Yeah.
Yeah, machining,
very-
you can make 40,000, 75,000,
Absolutely, and there's so many
And,
jobs like that.
and you
that,
don't have the college debt, too.
you don't have the college debt, and you know what? There's something about work is good, jobs are good. It makes you feel good. It's what which people are
Absolutely.
about. And so, when you go in and you do your work, and you know what? Sometimes that's all I've really worked in big is the white collar jobs where you just work and work because you're on a salary.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would just like to make my 25, 35 or more dollars an hour, and when it's time to go home, punch out, spend some time with the family,
Yeah.
instead of work kind of being a continuum, and you're always supposed to be on. It's a great way to make a living.
Absolutely.
And I'm for that.
putting people back to work is only going to improve the individual's confidence and the confidence of the entire society overall. Is
That's right.
our neighbors are working, we can go out and make an investment knowing that the economy's growing and it's probably not going to blow up on us.
Certainly, the kind of baby, before we transition to perhaps our next topic, one thing for sure is college educations are good, but they're not always used after you've got the degree in a way that increases your income and your financial stability, because there's a lot of majors just aren't there. And so that goes back also to the lending. If you want to borrow money, how you plan to pay that back? Will the major that you choose be a career that actually pays the type of money to pay this loan back? It'll get people to think about what their choices are.
I had a plumber
Absolutely.
visit my house this morning, and I got into a little conversation with him afterwards. One of the comments he made that stuck with me was that we can't find any good plumbers who are willing to work, So this touches
Plumbers,
upon
I think
what
electricians
you're-
too.
Yeah. I had the same, my cousin was at one time president of Roger Williams University
Yes,
in
yeah.
Bristol.
Yes.
And I had that same conversation with him, and I was surprised to hear him say that, there should be more emphasis on the trades, because I'm thinking of President-elect Trump, who is saying that he's going to invest I think he said $1 billion or $1 trillion, one of these big numbers in the infrastructure in the United States. It's going to take a lot of craftsmen to help him out with that. So there is good money in both, as well as in higher education, as you've indicated. Pick one, follow it, and expect that you're going to get at least some help from the people involved in government. They're going to pave the way for you. Put rules in place that are meaningful so that you can. And I don't mean by borrowing, like you indicated, $200,000, because there are very few people who can afford that today.
But I also don't believe in free school. So
Yeah.
when the progressives talk about free school, that is a bad idea.
Yep.
Because it's not free. We're going to pay for somebody else's free.
Right.
Also, you need to invest in yourself with your money. It's just that it shouldn't be so high.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't mind a little incentive. Perhaps if you get, if you're an all-A student and somehow that's measurable and you can whatever, maybe we give you a little refund. Also, just to make sure, if we're going to be in it with you, we'll maybe reward you for top performance. That might not be so, but just free, no way, because
This is where you disagree with Bernie Sanders then.
yeah, I disagree with Bernie Sanders on that. So Bernie, I'm sorry, Bernie.
I'll tell you, when I was 17 and going off to college, I did not like it one bit, but my father made me pay for my first semester in its entirety. And I had to cut the check from all the money that I saved up from my paper routes and my caddy, and he said, if I make you pay for your first semester, you're not going to screw
You're
this
gonna be
opportunity
serious.
up.
That was very wise. That was tougher than I was growing up. I like that.
Alan, I didn't want to leave education without without getting your opinion on two words:
Okay.
Common Core.
Okay. There's a lot of people that were very against Common Core because it comes from a national level, and the education should be more local. Okay. And of course, in Massachusetts, we elect a lot of our school committees. So I'm against Common Core by just having some overarching national standard, which we're not really always giving children the best overall education. What we are doing is training a lot of children to pass tests. So that part I'm not with. Standards are good, but local control makes some sense. Now that said, we may have to change what that means, because anybody who could be elected could perhaps be on the school board, but it doesn't mean they're qualified. So there's work to do on that side.
How do we control genetic engineering?
I have no comment on that right now, because part of that's a moral and ethical issue. You can put laws around it, but that doesn't mean that because it's science and science is global, that it'll get back to America in some way. But are you speaking about human species, or are you talking about
Yeah,
food?
I'm talking about all of the experimentation that is going on with genetic engineering in terms of animals and foods, and I don't know how we control it. I really don't know how we control it. It's one area where I would imagine laws are definitely going to have to be put in place. There's some ethical questions as to, what do you do that's right? Is it appropriate to recreate a kind of fish? Is it appropriate to dabble with animals and try to
Create a different
make
animal
them
by using
yeah,
different
not,
genetic
not
codes
only
and
that,
things
to
like that.
a cow that will produce more milk. Just dabbling with the human species in so many different ways. I would imagine it has to be controlled. I don't know how you control it. I don't know how you.
At the moment, we're not controlling it very well because there's a lot of government that's saying go right ahead and do so.
We leave it up to the drug and pharmaceutical companies and anyone else who wants to experiment like that.
This sounds like an important issue, and it is an important issue. But I think a gentleman like Alan right here, he's going to speak more to the kitchen table issues that are going to focus on everyday people that might not have thought of a question that more high level. A guy like this, I believe he's going to bring the issues back to what everybody's talking about at their kitchen table: education, the economy.
School.
There might be a time and place where that legislation passes you,
That's true.
but I don't think we're there yet, and I don't know if that's what Alan's here to talk about.
I'm not here necessarily to talk about it, but I'll tell you personally, which ultimately comes in how I would be a legislator, is personally I'm not overly concerned because we've been doing that one way or another anyway, because if you just go into the supermarket and you see how long fruit lasts and things like that, somebody's already done something, whether it was natural or whether they've gone into the cell. So
Yeah.
I'd like to leave it at that right now.
Okay.
One concept that you mentioned earlier was one that we would wholeheartedly agree with, that there is a lot of things government can do and do better, but then there's a whole lot more things of ways that we can get involved, that we can help out our neighbor, that we can be neighbors to our neighbors. And I think that's another shift that needs to happen in this next political season upcoming.
Well, certainly, the president or governor or whatever, you have to set a tone for people to be able to feel that they can volunteer and interact and do more things to make society better. Okay. Problem is, it's just like a lot of things. It's very hard to legislate and change people's behavior.
Saying we can't do that. It's just another change that needs to occur outside of government.
Outside of government.
Now, maybe
that's right.
government leaders could set examples.
Yes, but you can't. You just can't keep wrapping laws around people's heart. But that said, we still have in Massachusetts, especially, very vibrant volunteer. People do it for the goodness of their heart, not necessarily by a law.
That's all correct. Yep. If it was a law, you probably wouldn't do it, but
Probably wouldn't do it.
you make it an effort of the heart and you enjoy doing it.
That's right. But back to like the government, what I'm thinking about is, I talked about the government should be providing for our safety. I think it's already going to change before I get there, but I definitely would adjust the Iran deal. I thought that was a very good idea to a country that is absolutely supports our enemies, and we're going to continue to enhance their capability to the point where they will ultimately have a nuclear weapon just because they're advancing their science, because we're giving them an opportunity. What type of administration, what type of political ideology wants to put an atomic bomb in the hands of our enemies? That's why the progressives are losing. They are out of touch with Alan from Cape Cod and the good people of Burlington. That's not what you do. And so those are the type of things that we need to
Back to some
continue
common
work
sense
on.
things.
That's right. Or how about this? Elizabeth Warren did not support, basically she supported the UN sanction against our very good friends, the state of Israel.
Israel.
I am pro-Israel all the way. They're really our only true friend in the region.
Yeah, the only
You know,
democracy out there.
And for the Obama administration, after Trump was already elected to basically kind of, it was almost like a backhanded move. They could have stopped the UN and wait till at least to the new president to go in.
Right.
So it's those type of things, especially when, as I mentioned, Elizabeth Warren did not support the inner city school children like she should have. Elizabeth Warren did not want the latest bill that allowed more money to come in so that we could have more people to get drug rehab. Elizabeth Warren basically was against the state of Israel
Yeah.
in her own way.
Yes.
This is why she has to be replaced. If her only game is, well, she's worried about big banks and how finance companies might hurt the public, what about the rest of the things that are most important to us? So again, when it's talk about we want jobs and we want safety, we also need an administration and we need people to back that administration. Trump will come and Trump will go, but this is our time to make America stronger, and it can only be greater if it's stronger, better educated, and in fact, people feel more secure, and we got to get people not only make the jobs, but we got to get them back to work, There's a lot of things we have to do, a lot of work to be done.
If I could add on the foreign policy front, we need to remember what an ally is. It seems like this past president, has attacked more countries than any other president in the past. And right now, we don't have any friends. I think Israel might have been our last friend up until a couple weeks ago. So
Well,
right now,
they'll be our
there's no
friend
one.
again after the 20th. So once the president is in, that's right. And so we have to go through the world now and rebuild something. But you know what? They have to feel that we're strong. We're still the strongest, most powerful country ever on this earth.
Yes.
And we have to use that power as we always have. We Americans, we like to raise our families. We like to enjoy our life. We like to watch our football and drink our beer. And we don't want to have to worry about people trying to harm us, But in order to have our peace, we have to be strong. And we have to know that if you want to mess with us, if you want to awaken us and cause us to fight for our sovereignty and for our space in this world, then you probably mess with the wrong country. And the countries have to feel that way, because then they'll be your friend.
Yep.
Alan, in the early stages of your campaign, obviously I know you got some background in economics, but as far as the national security and international issues, have you encountered anyone in the campaign that might be able to advise you a little bit, that has worked in national defense or the military that you can lean on throughout the campaign?
I definitely know some people that are still involved in the military, although retired. I have friends that are ex-submarine commanders. There's people that worked on campaigns, but the short answer is I'm still looking.
Okay.
And as we go along the road, and as we grow, we'll find those type of people that can help me with those issues, so I can be well-rounded.
Perfect.
As much as a senator needs to be.
Yeah. That's what we want to hear.
What if we just check off a couple other issues?
Okay.
Second Amendment.
Okay. I have a Class A license. I believe in gun ownership. I believe that that should never be messed with, except I believe that illegal guns, we need to find a way to control that, because that's who are using the guns.
Of course.
You talk about Chicago, how many people had a legal gun that created all this mass mayhem and murder in any of the major cities, et cetera? So that, and what I would like to do, and what I plan to do, and I'd like to say what I will do, is I will be in touch with organizations such as the NRA, because what I want to know is what can we do to mold a plan so that we can work with the most gun freedom advocates, with people who do want at least some more safety, okay? But I believe in that, and let me tell you, when you talk about being a liberal about guns are fine, except if somebody's messing with your family, someone's wants to cause harm, in your neighbor, or especially, and of course yourself. There's a time to be a liberal, and there's a time that you have to take a man down, and you become very conservative if you have to put a bullet between a man's eyes because he's threatening the life of your loved ones.
Yeah.
So there's one thing worrying about gun ownership. There's another thing, when you need a weapon, you need a weapon.
Right.
And plenty of Democrats own guns.
Sounds like
Sure
an
they
issue which
do.
just really needed to manage the laws that are on the books already.
That's all we need to do, and that said, I do understand people's compassion because, again, people are killing people with illegal guns. We need to find a way to have laws that get illegal guns off of the street.
I heard this morning, the new year, they've already, in Chicago, they've already had 12 or 13 killing by gun in the new year. So it's almost been one a day.
And that's not going to stop because it's just very complex, but it comes down to back to the liberal, progressive failure on poverty. How many of these people that are shooting other men and boys, shooting other men and boys especially on the street and killing them or wounding them, how many of those families came from two-family households? How many of those young men came from places that had active fathers in their life?
Very few, I bet.
Very few, I bet. So,
Yep.
And it's going to take, it's not just a president or an administration to change, but we have to change things right from the fact that we have to have policies that don't make men run away, and or in a family situation that it should be not women with children, but men and women with children.
Right.
If that's the thing, we got to
Yep.
keep men, especially where they belong, in the lives where certainly
Yeah.
a woman wants them.
Is there a way for government to impact that?
The answer is well. You're going to have to work on the policies, the complex different things that we call welfare. What we find is that there are people who are needy and there are people who take advantage of the system. How can we find the people that are able-bodied that just don't continue to keep making bad decisions and then asking us to help them financially through cash and housing and whatever? I mean, just the mere fact that babies are born, that they're not ready to have children. How can we change? You got to do that in many cases.
have to change,
And you know what?
yeah.
That's where people will say, well, you're going to take away. No. What we want to do is have a system that helps the needy, but also the people who can and are able to work. We need to get them back and incentivize them to get back and to make sure that they're doing more than just living off the taxes of their neighbors. So those are the things that I think about all the time.
It's a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of, and you don't do it in one term or whatever. But what we have is we have, we'll keep it simple. You have the people that want less government, and there's people that want more government. But the people who want more government, how do you pay for that? And the answer is we're not paying for it well because of our government debt.
Yeah.
So I hope that Donald Trump, as controversial as he is as a man, becomes a very good president as an administrator.
Yeah.
And helps to lead this country in the way that hopefully the conservative movement, the moderately conservative movement, the people that care about things that we care about here at this table will be able to continue and not lose the ground right back, and we go right back into the progressive movement that keeps moving us to socialism. And there's very few states that just can keep living off of itself without growing itself.
There was a poll out last week that said even 57% of Democrats want to see Trump succeed.
Well,
Here in the Massachusetts?
Across the nation, 57% of Democrats want to see Trump succeed.
Yeah.
We don't want our presidents to fail. We don't want our country to fail.
no, we don't want to fail.
Yeah.
And you know what? There has to be a lot of Democrats that are just tired of the far left. And those are the Democrats that I want to look at my campaign and say, you know what? Alan Waters, he might be a Republican, but he's the guy for me because he cares about me, he cares about my children, he cares about their education, he cares about the fact that we not only need more jobs, but we have to develop a country that can grow these type of jobs. And you know what? America first over anyone else, but hey, we're still going to do international business. It's just that, you know, maybe U.S. companies don't need to just always run off and build. But you know, one of the things that's going to help, you know, probably before the winter's over, maybe we lower the tax on the corporate tax down to 15%, just like we're talking about, and that's going to help because it'll help repatriate money that is made, that has been revenue that was created by the overseas operations, and we can bring that money back to America. And so when that money comes back, some of that money is going to definitely help create more jobs. And then maybe more companies will want to stay here anyway. So we're in a great spot.
I think, I get the impression that that is part of Mr. Trump's design, and one of the
Let's see if we could just end it this way.
Yeah, go ahead.
In addition to having an effective president, we are hoping for a very effective senator from
Alan Waters
Massachusetts.
for U.S. Senate.
God bless you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
And once again, if people want to contribute or get involved, who do they contact?
Well, first, one of the best ways is go to the website, and the website is World Wide Web, Alan, A-L-E-N-R Waters, .com, AlanRWaters.com. Also, my Facebook is Alan Waters for U.S. Senate, and quite frankly, I often write political things on my personal website, which is Alan Rodney Waters, but we need money, and so we need donations. This is a grassroots campaign, so please also write a check, Alan Waters for Senate. That's simple. That's the name of my committee, Alan Waters for Senate, P.O. Box 2240 2240 in Mashpee, good old Cape Cod.
Thank you, Al.
02649.
Thank you very much, and I hope you stay in touch with us.
Thank you. I will
Let
be
us know
back.
of
I
anything
love this.
else we
This
can
was
do.
fun. Thank you so
We'd
much.
love to have you back, but I also hope you keep in touch with us and let us know what's happening.
All the time. You're on my
Great.
list.
Thank you again. Pat, now you had some announcements about the following shows?
Yeah, wanted to just mention that on the our next show, which would be 2 weeks from tonight, we will, on the 24th, we will have Barbara Leroux, who is the current chairman of the planning board, who is running again for the chairmanship of the planning board. She's going to tell us about her plans, her hopes and whatnot. Into February, we're looking to have John Petrin, the town manager, to visit with us to tell us about the Burlington. And finally, hopefully in the second meeting in February, Kevin Duffy from the old building 19 and a half to tell us a little bit about what they have accomplished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.